Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Bowls of sugar at the ready. All you weirdos are joining us weirdos in this usual delve into Lorne's bizarre backstory. Fucking hell, this is going to be some delve. So, what the idea was with this kind of series that we concocted is that we discuss Lorne's relationships. Well, they're not relationships. What the fuck are they? Could you?
Delusions?
Yeah, but some of them are kind of like. I suppose what we're discussing is were some of them not delusions? That's the
No.
point. So the idea was originally I thought I've got an idea. Why don't we talk about each one of Lorne's catfish relationships and discuss the dynamics of them? And because I think that could be really interesting. And then it was you, Tiffany, that said, "Well, actually, why don't we do before NBC?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, because." We've got all of the crazy stories, and the only thing that we've got of those is Lorne's word for it. I don't think we have any, secondary evidence at all. But we know something. We don't even. It could all be complete bullshit. Every part of it. But I do get the impression that there's some romantic. I don't know if romantic is the right word, but there's some kind of shenanigans that went on, and he's. Pre-NBC. We kind of... Can you remember what we were talking about last time? It was kind of his very kind of earlier life, but there's still a lot to go through. We've not talked about Molly. I know we've talked about the Molly situation quite a lot, but we've not even talked about Amanda James yet, which is a... And do you know what's interesting about those two so-called relationships is... The Amanda James thing started him on his road to getting catfished, and the Molly thing potentially started him on his road to being a registered sex offender. So they were both kind of catalysts to the ultimate catfish, which was the NBC thing. So I find that really interesting. Yeah, but the problem is with all this, I think the thing is with the Amanda James thing, it is kind of. Do we know when that happened? Have we got a timeline at all? Have we been able to figure it out, or has anybody come up with a good, decent guess?
Well, it was before he left Washington State and went back to Maine. And if I recall correctly, that was after 2001, right? I think he went back in 2002.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so I think it probably was around the year 2000-ish.
That's also, doesn't that coincide with Molly, 2002?
I was wondering about this because according to Lorne, the Amanda James thing rumbled on for at least 2 years.
Yes, and they were still speaking when he was in Maine because that's where the sister came in.
Wow.
Thank God for his sister.
And it was revealed.
Who thinks he still wasn't reaching out for Amanda James even after his sister revealed it?
Oh, yeah, that wasn't the end of it.
No, definitely not.
That was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, he was. Right. He said it took another 6 months after he found out that she was lying to him to stop talking to her. And I assume she eventually changed her number, right?
Exactly. Because more specifically, he said it took them 6 months for them to stop talking to each other.
Uh-huh.
Well,
so it wasn't just from his direction.
Didn't she actually ghost him on Messenger or however she was talking to him and relegated their discussions to emails?
Yes.
Her messenger was broken. Don't you hate when that happens?
I am.
I do.
When your social media is broken.
Well, don't you think you get the hint at that point? I mean, I can only reach out to this person by email.
Wait, what are you saying? You're saying he's going to take the hint? He talked to a robot for 2 years.
You took the words out of my mouth. Yes. There are no hints with Lorne.
He reminds me of the guy in California. I can't remember his name. Oh shoot, I can't remember his name. But, I'm wrong. That guy. He drove by the place and saw cops arresting a guy on the lawn, and then he came back anyway.
Oh, I know what you mean. He was a bit tubby, wasn't he?
And he saw the show. So it's like there's something missing with these guys.
So with the Amanda, we might as well let's establish first of all. Do we know? We pretty much think that the Amanda James and Molly situation kind of overlapped. So he was kind of cheating on the pair of them, wasn't he? Really, by the sounds of it.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I think that it's likely Molly was slightly later. I don't think
because
that
of her age.
overlap.
He probably
because of her age. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think that.
Math, yeah.
Not to say that Lorne's discriminatory when it comes to age, but I don't think that even somebody, as vulnerable as what Molly might have been, would have been inclined to get involved with somebody like Lorne until they were probably at least 13, 14.
Well, that's when it happened.
Yeah.
She was a freshman in high school.
15, according to him, wasn't she?
Sure. And it's possible that she could have been. I because you have the birthdays and where those fall, and depending on where somebody is in there, what grade they're going to be in. But and what time of year they actually started talking. So there's a lot of question in there without knowing for sure that, she was either 14 or 15, but apparently she was a freshman in high school and she had 4 years to go until she graduated. And I believe that at that time she was going to be 18. And then he said that when he was down in Nashville, she was going to go down there and they were going to try something then. So just kind of putting that together without being able to really nail down specifics as far as dates are concerned, I would say she was approximately in the 14, 15 age range.
Yeah.
I humbly disagree with that. I think there was one point where he had
said, then you're going to have to leave.
Okay.
Yeah. See you, shit. Bye.
I resent the fact that you guys think that Lorne would ever cheat on anyone, okay? So he wasn't.
To be honest, he's got a point there. I kind of feel ashamed
You
of
do
myself.
have a point.
But
yeah.
He said in one call he was 32, which would make it 2002. And then, we did the math. I wrote this comment one time where I did the math. And he got caught in 2007 where she was still in high school. I think she was 13. I mean, that's the only way.
I don't think that she was still in high school because she had graduated at that point and then was going to go down to Nashville. Because that was in October. That wasn't her senior year when that happened. She had already graduated.
Well, that makes a difference but I thought the plan was as soon as she graduates, she's going to see him. So that would make it another in 2008, right?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think that it was. I mean, of course, you could be right, but I don't think so. My impression was always that when he went down to Nashville, they were still talking and she was going to go down there like relatively soon. It wasn't as if it was going to be next year.
The interesting thing about Molly is I believe when we were talking, or should I say I was talking, that there was no secondary evidence, corroborating evidence is probably the better way of putting it. We do have that with Molly, don't we? Because he mentioned her in the chat, but didn't he say her name in the chat log, or was he just referring to her in the third person?
No, he said her name.
He did say her name, yeah,
right.
Because of MySpace.
Yeah, they were referring to her with MySpace, right?
The reason. Yeah, and the reason I say as well as that, because obviously he could have lied and made this person up, but we saw the MySpace screenshot, didn't we? Of this person.
Yeah.
So I think this is the only one that we can confirm. Now, I do believe there was a real Amanda James. I think Lorne just didn't just magically come up with that in front of Chris Hansen, although it wouldn't fucking surprise me, just trying to get. But you get the point. We all have to make a decision about whether we believe it, and I think there was definitely some truth there because he brought his sister into it. But Lorne has got an overactive imagination. But anyway, I'm going off on one now. But the point is, with the Molly situation, we know something went on there. And we've talked about this before. We've done all streams about it. So I don't want to keep going, although we do kind of go over the same topics, which inevitably is going to happen with the amount of streams we've done. But I suppose what's interesting for me, I was thinking about it earlier when I was thinking about how we were going to approach the stream, and like I said, the kind of point of this is to talk about the dynamics in each relationship. Now, this isn't what one would consider a normal. Well, none of them are normal relationships, are they? I mean, fucking hell, even the real ones are fucked up. What are the real ones? He's either stalking someone or they're underage, and the other ones are all fake. I mean, it's just, you know what I mean? So we're not talking about normal situations here. But what I found interesting about the Molly situation is this what started him off on his road to being in that chat room and trying all the tricks that he did with Kayla? That's what interests me. And did he purposely go after Molly or somebody of that age? Was it like a chance encounter? Did he start to realize at that point, this is my best chance of getting someone? Because that's how a lot of these people operate. And Lorne...
That's assuming he's an opportunist. Like, he's preferential, I think. I don't think that's a situation where he's only left with that. I think he would pursue that over other ones. That's my feeling about it. But
me too.
And by the way, I don't think it's his predilection or whatever it is started then. There's no way. I think it started. I think those perverted feelings that he had started when he was babysitting his nieces. I think at that point he became attracted. He realized he was attracted and probably exposed himself many times in front of him. So and that idea really turned him on, and he just wanted to keep going back and chasing that feeling. And I think he just became better and better at it. But you got to have to remember also that he had to have been well learned at that point, because he was doing these emojis that kids do. So he had to have been on it all the time, on chat all the time. So I think between the time he had his nieces and the time he worked himself up to Kayla, I think a lot was going on then, a lot of experimenting, and I think he might have had been very close to getting caught a few times. That's just my feeling.
I agree. I think he sought Molly out just like he did with Kayla. I think he probably, when he said because he said that Molly contacted him first and told him that she liked his singing. And I don't believe that. I think he did the same thing he did with Kayla and went down the list of who appeared to be young girls in the chat room and messaged all of them. And Molly happened to respond.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I also agree that his attraction to young girls started with his nieces. It just makes too much sense.
But
it was always in him. It was dormant until he started acting on things. Like I said, the actions he would take back then with his nieces, everybody says, well, he may have seen his nieces naked a lot, which I don't doubt. I think he probably made an effort to do that. But I think he was, the abuse was more along the lines of, oh, shoot, my towel dropped, that kind of shit, because he is an A1 exhibitionist. And he had to have been doing that. And I think he found a bigger world on the internet where he can do that.
But with his nieces, though, what about... So when he started talking to... When we think he started talking to Molly, they would have been around about the same age, wouldn't they, actually, now that I think about it? Because actually, no. Right, hang on. I'm getting confused now. I'm not as well versed in the timeline. How old do we think his nieces were at the time the chat log started? Were they already...
Well, he said that they were older than Kayla. Yeah, that's as much as we know.
So it could have been at the same time he was talking to Molly. You see, the thing is, I'm not entirely... I know people are going to roll their eyes. I'm not entirely comfortable talking about the nieces thing, because you bring in other people into it that kind of... I mean, we're not mentioning the names, so I suppose it's not a big deal. It's just... I suppose it's kind of... When we're talking about it, you kind of... It's very grim, isn't it? Just that image that I had in my head then that you said, Shin, about Lorne dropping the towel. It conjures up sort of malevolence, doesn't it? Because you kind of like, oh, this is, family members. Plus, we don't know as well.
But if you don't talk about it, to have any kind of apathy toward it, or any kind of, if you just want to ignore it and move on, you're falling into his hands at that point. That's what he wants, the big secretive nature of it. I say let sunlight expose this guy. You know, I mean, unfortunately, yeah, there's victims involved. We don't mention by name. We're very respectful about that. But it's his biggest dream to be able to have people like us feel uncomfortable about talking about his deviancy. You know, that's what he wants. That's the way I look at it. I mean, I'm not going to reward him.
I'm not saying we can't talk about it. I'm just saying it doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't particularly enjoy the niece's even the Molly thing is never sat quite. I don't even like mentioning a name, but it's fucking already out there and whatnot.
Yeah, he did it. He did it, not you.
But yeah, but with regard to the niece's thing, we're speculating, and the best we can say is there's a fucking lot of glaring red flags there all over the place when it comes to the nieces. What's your take on it, Tiffany, with regard to the nieces? And
sure, there's huge red flags.
Yeah.
As far as, you know, anything happening, I have no idea. You know, things do happen, obviously, within families, unfortunately. As far as did he do something, I have no idea. You know, also considering the fact that he could have been scared to do that. I think that he felt much more emboldened to do that on the internet. And I think that he certainly could have gotten the idea, perhaps, when he allowed his niece to go into a chat room and he said that somebody spoke to her inappropriately, and this was an older man. So I think that he was up to those types of things.
Yeah, that was a very suspicious tale.
Yeah,
right. Talk specifically about the red flags. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, when it comes to his chat log, he brings up his nieces a couple of times. And
right
he doesn't
away
talk
as
about
well.
His nephew. He talks about his nieces specifically. And right, exactly. He talked about them right away. And talks about how he likes to spoil them and all of that. And he even made up that story about the shorts.
That's red flag to me, number one.
Of course it is. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, he certainly did have some type of I don't know if I would even call it attraction or whatever word I would use, but there was an interest that he had in who they were at that time in their life.
Yes. Which is, for somebody like him, for what we know of him, the RSO, it's like, wow. Your mind's going to be going in all kind of directions at that point, isn't it? It's like, we know this of him. He's got zero integrity, zero impulse control. Fucking hell. It's like...
No veracity. He can't, he's incapable of telling the truth, but every now and then he slips. You know, gives us a little nugget. Like the niece, like seeing his nieces naked. I have lots of nieces. I don't think that's ever happened. They've even stayed at my house. I mean, just the idea that he would admit to that makes you wonder what the real story is.
I think you're right there. That's another massive red flag as well, isn't it? It's like there's not one kind of huge.
There's another one.
There's loads.
Well, there's one where he was talking about, and this is very revealing on his mental state. He was talking about Paula and how Paula was jealous of his relationship with his niece.
Mm-hmm.
That's in his own mind, no question about it. But
of course, yeah.
What kind of predicate do you have to have that thought to begin with?
He thinks that there's always going to be something between a male and a female.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking that. That's the way he operates. His emotions, he can't, when there's no impulse control, there's no maturity either. So he sees a female that's got even a hint of like, she's growing up and changing into a woman. There's attraction there, and his brain engages straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. His nieces have feelings. They could fall in love too.
Right.
But here's the thing, though. There's a blurred line in that family with incest. Weird shit. Weird passing around. I don't even know what's going on. I don't want to speculate on the worst situation here, but it seems like it's not as not as taboo as it is in real society. It's weird.
Sorry, Tiff, I interrupted you then when you were going to start talking. You were saying that I think you was getting to the point of the females, basically. That's all that's needed for Lorne to act.
Yeah, even when he talks about the dogs, a male and a female dog. Well, this is the girl dog. That's going to be your dog.
I don't like where this is going.
That's going to be my dog because he's the male. You know, he has an odd view of that. And so naturally, he's going to think that Paula is jealous of his relationship to the nieces or whatever attention he's giving to them because she's a female and they're females and he's a man, and therefore his attention shouldn't be on them. That Paul is going to see them as I'm trying to think of the word, competition. Exactly.
Competition.
And the fact that Paula was giving attention to his nephew, so therefore he would see his nephew as competition. It's very odd.
Yeah.
Very odd.
Yeah.
But going back to your original question, I think that's where, I think that's where he started acting it out at least. And also it was around the time he was becoming an adult too.
Yeah, when he left the Air Force and then went to Washington.
Right.
It's also interesting that when he brought up the nieces to Kayla for the first time, he said, I have 2 nieces your age. They were not, in fact, her age. They were older than her. It's just a strange thing to say. That's like saying, oh, I'm your age. Well, actually, I'm not your age, but I used to be your age at one time.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing.
Right. And he wasn't even speaking. He was typing.
Mm-hmm.
So if he made a mistake in what he was going to say, why didn't he just correct himself before sending it?
The thing you said about how he sees the 2 sexes as different and I don't know, the interaction's going to be reflective of that and all that stuff. It reminds me of his book, maybe it's kind of a stretch to bring this comparison, but when they found out that Brooke and was it Samuel or Aaron were going to get married, suddenly the girls separated from the boys kind of thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes.
When you get girls together, you can't get them, bullshit.
You're right, exactly. And the guys are there together and they have no idea what to do.
They don't know how to cook. Are you
No.
Yeah. They come in to rescue you from a nightmare.
So, with regard to Molly and the nieces thing, it's a bit strange that at this moment in Lorne's life, you've got Molly, his nieces, Kayla, all round about the same age. But he's not a predator, by the way, which is fucking amusing. You know what you were saying, Shin? I think you were saying that he'd specifically target these people. Like, he's an opportunist, but were you saying that you think that he goes after them specifically? He would at this point,
Well, yeah, I think de facto he would just naturally have more success to begin with. Number one, but there are certain variables he needs, like even with his nieces, and I'm not bringing it back to that, but his niece's mother had depression, so they were suddenly no one's looking out for them. Same thing with Molly. Molly had the alcoholic father, and I don't know much about the mother. I don't know whether he talked about that much. And also Molly had issues with fitting in school and whatever. That's perfect for him. That's fertile ground for him, of course. And again, he may have not started out that way, but he realized that that's who he should be looking for by just the way it worked out. It was easier to get those people who were vulnerable. He's not the most cognitive individual to reflect on things. He's a creature of habit. And I think that's vulnerability and isolation are 2 of his main variables that he's looking for.
I'm not sure I don't think Lorne's sophisticated enough to come out with a specific plan. Like, he just goes with what's easiest. It obviously came naturally to him during the chat log, But Lorne doesn't understand his own emotions and his own behaviour. He can't see any correlation between his behaviour and how his life has turned out. He all just thinks it's bad luck, and people have screwed him over. You know, he doesn't understand. He's not at that level yet where he can start to, you know, control his own behaviour.
Yeah, well, I was describing.
Well, in all those occasions, he's the hero. He gets to be the hero. Molly's father is an alcoholic. She doesn't fit in school, and her boyfriend is being an asshole to her. So he swoops in to save the day. He wasn't preying on her or talking to her for his own gratification. He just wanted to help her. Melissa was wanting to use drugs, and he had to talk her out of using drugs. Again, he's the hero. Kayla, he only talked to her because nobody else would talk to her, and he felt so bad for her. Again, the hero. And with the nieces, like you said, Shin, their mother was depressed and couldn't care for them, so Lorne had to do it.
Yeah.
That's what he's looking for, is the justification where he's not a bad guy. He's not preying on these girls. He's helping. He just wants to help everyone.
Think about the excuses that the guys use when they get caught by Chris Hansen. They also say, oh, I was going to wait for her parents to come home so I could tell them exactly what she's up to. You know, or she's by herself. They left her all alone.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I was. I was going to tell them how I came to be here.
Right, exactly.
I sent her penis pictures, but that was just to keep her occupied. But I think what I described before sounds more of an opportunist, where he's finding the vulnerable people, actually works for him. But I think he transitioned into preferential once he realized that he got his foot in the door with somebody. He would then realize he can groom this person to be the person he wanted them to be. Think the way he does, you know, unlike an adult woman who he couldn't do this with. They have their own set of values and everything.
But else. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't even understand why he's doing that. He's doing it because he's insecure and he wants this person to just dance to his dance.
Right.
He doesn't understand the behavior he's engaged in. He's doing it, you know, so he can have this prized possession to himself. He's grooming her, but he doesn't even understand his own grooming techniques. He probably thinks he is being the hero, like Amanda James said. It's very interesting.
Right. So, you know, he may have, you know, blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while. He may have found a vulnerable person, but then he realized once he found that person, he could develop her to suit his own needs. And I think that's when he became preferential. I know I said just repeating myself, but that I think is a very important stage in his life and his development to this psychological issue that he's having.
So if we look at the Molly situation, what interests me is, because the way he talks to Kayla, the positive reinforcement that he's getting from her is off the charts. I mean, I suppose he's not getting much sexual stuff, if anything, back from her at all. So that pisses him off. But she's going with everything that he says. What really interests me would be, how did the relationship go between him and Molly? So how did it? Obviously, we've got no. We can only theorize. We've got no intel whatsoever. The only thing we've got is we know what Lorne is like and how did he behave in the chat log. So what were the techniques that he was using that he thought that would work? Hearing him talk about Molly afterwards was kind of interesting. Oh, we cared about each other and this meeting at the fair bullshit, and you know, it's an intriguing tale because that got him all into a frenzy when he was in Nashville. It's like, right, I must go online and find these 13-year-old vulnerable girls, you know, Disney Girl and the other one. But this was a real person. You know, this isn't some catfish trying to get him in prison. So I'd love to know what was going on now. There was obviously... Usually what happens with people like Molly at their age when they're vulnerable, they talk to a flurry of men because they're just trying to get as much positive attention or what they see as positive at the time. If they're lacking that from the family, they will seek it from anywhere that they can. It's very, very sad and upsetting, but it's an unfortunate truth. So what that extended to with Lorne, I'm not sure. We can only, like I said, we can only theorize.
Yeah, I think that I think that what you see in the chat log is obviously slightly different from when he would have been talking to Molly, just because with Kayla, he's just talking to a shell of a person. She's wanting to have him do all the talking because that's what her purpose is. With Molly, it's going to be different because, like you said, a different person. She is going to have her own set of problems, and she's going to have a real personality. And obviously, there was something about Lorne that she liked. She talked to him. She did say that they did expose themselves to each other. I don't think that he's lying about that. I think it's likely that she did. But as far as the similarities are concerned, I think that he did all of the same things. He drank a lot. He was on the phone with her while he was drunk, and probably accusatory, crying, all of the things that we've heard over the years. That's the type of treatment that Molly would have received. We just don't know what her response to that would have been.
No question. You got to remember that also Lorne considered her his quote unquote girlfriend.
Yes.
We know it's indeterminate amount, but we could surmise that it's at least a month. During that month time is when all that was on display. There's no question about it.
Of course.
The ex, other guys at school, not spending enough time with him on the internet. And of course, can you imagine how many offlines he was sending her?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there were a ton. Yeah. Everything. You're bombing. So pretty.
Mm-hmm. But also like the laying down of the rules of the relationship, kind of like when you love someone, you avoid all other boys at school, or you're gonna lose me. And when I need you, you need to be there. When I say, call me, I want you on the phone constantly. We're going to stay on the phone with each other all night, even when we're sleeping. Those are the things he tried to lay down for Kayla. This is how you behave in a relationship. And when you love someone, you are sexual with them. You give them what they want. Showing yourself naked, talking sexually all the time. I do wonder if he pushed it harder, like the dirty talk with Kayla than with Molly. I wonder if Molly was sort of had more boundaries or was less comfortable with it. I mean, Kayla was clearly uncomfortable with it, but she didn't really push back on any of it. She just said K and cool. I wonder if Molly kind of didn't want to engage in it that much.
Or it's possible she did.
Well, yeah,
it is absolutely.
But he's also a sneaky little fuck too. So it's like, who believes that he wasn't naked at least 80% of the time he was talking?
Definitely.
At night, when he's at his house.
Yeah, of course he was.
He's always going to get up and show his butt and then come back and talk about, hey, you like singing that, and that could end up to be kind of a fun conversation for him, and that might keep things going for him. But this guy, I don't think he was any different than he was with Kayla. I think, if anything, I think he learned certain things. To be a little more subtle, I guess. But when Kayla was giving him nothing, he was just all out, full bore predator. He had nothing stopping him, like a real girl would, who might say something.
Sure, if they would have said something. I mean, that's what we have to consider as well. Is that?
And you got to remember, they were both on video, right? They were both on video. And there was a time when her computer moved to her bedroom. Right.
So who knows what the extent of things were, especially on her end. But she absolutely could have been willing. And that doesn't make it okay, because obviously we understand that somebody of that age isn't able to provide consent. And there are girls who are going to exhibit that type of behavior at a young age, especially if there's already been abuse before.
Yeah, but Lorne takes it the extra mile though with his shit, But
what do you mean?
Well, the idea that like Amanda brought up that he sleeps with her on the phone. How they stayed on the phone sleeping all night. How do you?
Oh, sure.
A 13-year-old girl doing that.
Oh, sure. No,
sorry,
absolutely.
Can I interrupt there? What's this staying on the phone all night? Did he mention that?
Oh yeah,
he did mention that. Yeah.
When did it? Was
he
this
said
in
that,
one of the calls? Oh,
yes.
to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'd stay on the phone all night when they needed comforting. When one of the two needed comfort from the other, they would literally sleep on the phone together, like teenagers do. But Lorne was a 36-year-old man at the time.
Yeah.
And when he told Tiffany that, it wasn't out of shame. It was to highlight how close they were, how special their relationship was with each other.
Right.
Yeah, they cared about each other.
Exactly.
That's where his neediness comes
many
through
times.
In the Kayla situation as well, because he was obviously wanted to be on the phone with her as much as possible. He always wanted her to be online, to be there. It was like, a lot of people use relationships to, to sort of fill gaps in their life, and in some respects there's nothing wrong with that. But with him, obviously they're all underage, and you can just see that's how it was. It's just interesting. I'm just fascinated by the dynamics in that relationship, but we'll never know, of course. Yeah, what's the Melissa? Just very briefly, I know this has been explained to me before, but I always forget. Who's Melissa again?
This was another girl that he spoke to. Said that she was 16-ish, and at some point, and his story has changed, I think, a little bit. But most recently, I believe that he explained that she went over to his house when she was 19 and had a friend with her who was pregnant. I remember that. He was hanging out with his nephew, who was the same age as them, and they were drinking. Well, his nephew and Lorne were drinking, but the girls weren't. And he said that nothing happened. There's not a lot of detail that's been given. The friend was pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. But there wasn't ever
really
a lot of
fishy.
saying. Of course it is. Absolutely. Yeah. The vagueness of every story that he tells is fishy. Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't make any sense. He said that she showed up uninvited and unannounced. She didn't call first. They didn't set it up. She just showed up at his door. And when he was asked, well, how did she know where you lived? He said, well, I owned a business at that time. So she must have looked in the phone book and gotten my address, which is, and as we know, I don't know where Lorne was living at that time, exactly what town, but it's a rural town. It's not like, oh, well, we're in the neighborhood. Let's just stop by this guy's trailer and see if he's home. They would have had to plan to do that. They would have obviously look up his address and then travel to his house and just show up, that's so weird and strange. And she's just going to show up with her pregnant friend. And he just so happens to have his nephew over, who is the same age as the girls.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, why would they just go over there?
No, they wouldn't. Of course, like I said, it's not like he lived in a very populated place and they're like, oh, Lorne lives over there. Let's just stop by and say hi real quick. This is out of the way. And they're young girls showing up at a strange man's home that she's never met in person before. If I understood the story correctly, they had never met in person. And it's the same thing like with the Molly situation when the fair story. He said Molly called his hotel room
Mm-hmm.
And the only way she could have done that is if she called around the motels in the area and asked if there was a Lorne Armstrong there. I don't think they can tell. If you call a hotel today and say, hey, can you connect me, or is somebody by this name staying there, they're not going to give you that information.
But if you say connect me to this guy, you know, you already know they're there. That's different.
Even then, I don't know if that works. I think it would have to be like, can you connect me to Lorne Armstrong in room 33 or something?
Right.
Or
yeah.
So there's like a rule against that. Obviously, you can't just call a hotel and ask, hey, is this person staying there, for safety reasons? And it's also strange that the phone book is involved so much with these young girls. They're going to break out the white pages or the yellow pages or whatever and track Lorne down to call around. It just, that's something Lorne would think to do because he's a psycho, but I don't think a teenage girl would do the same.
Amanda,
there's too much we don't know.
Have you guys ever tried to imagine what that scene was like when they arrived? How Lorne was acting? You ever thought about that?
Oh, I could imagine. When the girls arrived at the trailer when he was drinking, I could imagine him being very awkward and goofy and laughing at everything. Picture Lorne when he walked into the Sting house before Chris Hansen showed up. And that's what you're going to get, I think. But I think he'd be even more confident because they're at his house and he's drunk. He would be laughing about nothing. He'd be showing them the sheetrock project that he's working on at the moment. Showing them his jail toilet.
What about the way Lorne walked into the Sting house? And there was no apprehension, and it was just like, you know, you see the way. What's that clicking going on the mic? Sounds like somebody's putting a cassette tape in or something.
No,
I don't hear anything.
Right, I think it'll stop now.
I don't know.
The way he walked in, I think it was alluded to by somebody that I might be getting mixed up with in other cases, that it's like he's done it before. Can you imagine if it, like, I think there are some predators that it would have been the first time they were involved in something like that, because most of them probably wouldn't have got anywhere with, you know, other people. It's easy for them. They go online, they're unlucky enough or lucky enough, depending on which way you look at it, to get a decoy, and the decoy says, yeah, come over, I'm up for it. In most cases, he wouldn't got anywhere. But he just walked in, as Casey said, very proud, very excited. It's like, you've done this before, motherfucker. So, do you understand what I mean? Wouldn't you... It's not an exact science, obviously, but you'd think you'd be a little bit more apprehensive, wouldn't you, if it's an unusual, unfamiliar situation? So...
Well, that's a situation where he went to them, but them coming to him, I think, would give him a lot more confidence. And you got to remember also that during the Sting, he had asked for a kiss 3 times. Who's to say that he didn't try to do that when Melissa was there? I can't fathom a scenario where he wouldn't. You know, whether he tried to ask for a kiss or move in on one, you know, whatever it is. Because from what I remember, Tiffany, correct me if I'm wrong, that visit didn't last very long, did it?
No, it was probably just a couple of hours, according to him.
I thought it was even less than that. They weren't drinking. She was pregnant.
No, they weren't drinking, right.
Just stopped by.
According to his story, it just happened. And
who would think he would try something?
What was that?
Who would think that he would not try something? You know, try to get a kiss or something, a hug maybe, or whatever.
He said he gave them a hug. He said, "Oh, I hugged Melissa, but I hugged her pregnant friend too," and I don't doubt that.
Yes.
You know, I was just thinking though. He said, I remember him saying something like he wasn't attracted to Melissa. And he said it was because she had bipolar disorder, I think. But he said he wasn't attracted to her, which is interesting because he considered her his girlfriend. He also said at one point that he wasn't attracted to Molly. There was... When Lorne did, I'm trying to think, my brain isn't working. When Lorne read part of the chat log with Winnie, they got to the Molly part, which was really interesting to hear Lorne's reaction, because the way Winnie read the chat log was very, very different than the way you read the chat log, Tiffany. And Winnie was very lighthearted about it, laughing about it, acting like it wasn't a big deal. And they got to the part about Molly. When they got there, Lorne lied and said Molly was 18 or 19 or something like that. He did not disclose her real age. And Winnie said something like, I bet she was real pretty. Or was she pretty? And Lorne said, I didn't think she was pretty. No, she wasn't pretty. And he went on to describe that he didn't think she was pretty, but she had a lot of problems or something like that. And then he changed the subject very quickly. And he did the same thing with Nikki too. After the Nikki situation ended, he said Nikki wasn't attractive.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But that takes me to the report from probation when they went over to visit him after he was harassing her with text messages. And he said that they were dating and they asked him if she knew that.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
If I said, hey, I have a new girlfriend, somebody said, does she know that? I don't know. I'd be wondering who the fuck I am, you know? But,
well, usually I think
he got mad at them.
He got mad at them. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because it was true.
I shouldn't have, right.
It was a valid
I
question.
Shouldn't have to tell my personal business to you. Lorne, if you didn't try to rape children, then you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing is about him calling particular whatever girlfriends, whatever he's got, not attractive. That fits his MO all the way. I mean, look at what he did with Paula. You know, it was the worst sex in the world. It was like warm air or whatever it was. I think it's his way of taking away the sting of rejection. I think that's why he does that. I think that, you know, otherwise, why, if they weren't attracted, why was he with them? Why was he trying to scoop them up? You know, no, that's just his way of you know, dealing with the pain of rejection. And he's like that. You know, look what he did with Molly with the when she flashed him, and she knew it was for some other guy. He knew it was for some other guy, but he had to let her know, you know, that he knew, only because she didn't want him to have one over him. You know, he's like that. He's malevolent like that. It's the same way with me. I'm going off on a tangent, but he's the same way with. He actually admitted this to, I can't remember which catfish it was, Casey or the robot, saying that he intentionally inflict pain on someone because they caused him pain. That's malevolence. That's evil. You know, his sole intention is to inflict pain so they know what he feels. You know, I used to feel sorry for this guy. You know, now I don't.
You felt sorry for Lorne?
Well, kind of. You know what I mean. I mean, he's a loser in every facet of his life. I hope he stayed alone. I didn't wish him any happiness or anything like that. But there was a part of me that said, oh my God, this guy's got so much going wrong with him in his life. How is he taking himself off this earth?
No, I've had those feelings as well, you know, because you look at, not so much, but yeah, I do have those moments where I think he's not got a lot in the luck of this guy. He's not had a lot to work with in his life, you know. It's like
he's a piece of shit. So it's not so. Yeah.
But he doesn't do anything to invoke any kind of real sympathy, does he? He's a very unlikable character. He really is.
But don't you have to have
some? I never have those moments.
No, I don't think Commander James does either.
I know
you
he
know
doesn't.
what I mean.
Oh, not anymore. No, but I did once. I did feel bad for him one time. In the very beginning, when I first found the Ramona calls, I had never listened to any other Lorne kind of stuff, and I somehow just came upon a Ramona call, and he was crying and begging her. I'm trying to remember exactly what one. I think it was the one when he was begging her to tell him that she cared about him.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking in my mind, like, this is emotional torture. They are emotionally torturing this guy. And I did have a moment where I felt a little bad for him. Then I listened to the rest of the call. I think I just listened to like a clip of that. But I lost. Yes, I lost.
They were angry tears. They were angry tears after a while.
Well, and he's an asshole. He's a shitbag. So I stopped feeling bad for him. Yeah.
But let's all
totally
admit,
left in a moment.
Isn't there some measure of appreciation we all have with all this funny ass content he's giving us stuff? I mean, there's no way to thank him, right? I mean, you don't want to. You certainly don't want to feed his ego in any way, shape, or form. But the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, he's provided us with a lot.
It's a very unique form of affection. I don't think affection is the correct term, but I understand what you mean. It's like the amount of humor that this man has provided us with and intrigue is off the charts. It's remarkable, really. So I get where you're coming from. So, I mean, the problem is with the Molly situation, we don't have that much to go on. I think we've talked about... I don't think there's anything further that we can add, really. Which... I don't think we have much more information on the Amanda James story. Obviously, the first time we heard about it, in case you didn't know, was in the uncut footage where he's spouting it to and do you know, it'll always make me think, when I think about Amanda James, I think about Bass Sharma's reaction to it when he was doing the reaction to the uncut footage. He was like, who the fuck is Amanda James? We've got a new character. And it was like, and then he tells this story, which was kind of rambling and didn't really go anywhere. And Chris had to keep prompting him all the time. And he's babbling on about nieces. It's like, what, nieces again? What's fucking going on with this guy? It was a very strange tale. He's mentioned a couple more times since, in obviously the catfishing calls. It was funny when he mentioned it to Ramona. He's like, her real name is such and such a thing, and he starts ranting about this drunken rant. It was so funny. But what's so amusing is that this guy got catfished for so long, and just like his sister spoke to this person for like 5 minutes and realized that she was fake, which is so amusing. It just, as if we needed any further proof of how stupid Lorne is. There we have it.
Maybe she had a robot voice.
Can you imagine?
It was Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, Lorne. Where is my Dale Earnhardt Jr. stuff?
Yeah, I think the Amanda James situation's interesting from Lorne's perspective. I think from her perspective, it was very different. My take on Amanda James is that she was a woman in a chat room that had 10 Lornes that she was talking to. And she obviously wasn't using her real name. She wasn't telling these people, really anything. I mean, I don't know how much chatting played a role in her social life, because I think at that time in the early 2000s, the chat rooms were really big. And so they had a ton of people in there. And I think for somebody like Lorne, because we know from him that was really his social outlet, other than him going to the karaoke bar. So that was his way of talking to women. And it could have been the same for Amanda James. Who knows who she was, who knows what her life was like. And she comes across Lorne, and she comes across many other guys, and she's just kind of talking to them, whether she's flirting, being sexual, sending photos of who knows who or what. But she probably did have some type of a relationship with Lorne, friendship or otherwise. So, for him to say that he took her so seriously that he didn't talk to anybody for 2 years, didn't date anybody or whatever, because Amanda James was on his mind, I don't think that that's true either. Certainly we know, even though Shin is really the only one who thinks that Lorne will never cheat. I think that he was absolutely talking to others. He was talking to other people, just like he was with Kayla. He's professing his love for Kayla, and was also hitting up other people and saying the same thing. So I think that he certainly could have been, still trolling the chat rooms, looking for people to talk to at the same time. But I do think that the story is certainly funny. AJ had talked about earlier how she ghosted him and said, "Oh yeah, my messenger doesn't work. Oh geez, we're just gonna have to email each other from now on." And just was doing that. And it's really interesting because he said that he left Washington to move to Maine to be closer to her. Now, I don't think that's the reason why he moved back. But I think it is interesting that he was supposed to be in love with this person. He was supposed to have this deep relationship with them. And he's moving to Maine to be closer to her, but he was never as close as when he was in Pennsylvania driving through. But he also didn't have any way to contact her. So I think it's funny
that doesn't stop his love.
No,
why didn't he bust out the phone book like the girls always
true? Yeah, that's very true.
Well, where's he sending this shit to? Is it a PO box? Does he at least get the town?
It could have been, or maybe
either that,
she said she moved or something within that time.
Or maybe
he lied and he didn't send her anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely also a possibility. Yeah.
Because we never got, I feel like if he had actually sent her stuff, that would have been repeated 1,000 times in the stories about Amanda James over the years. I sent her a Dale Earnhardt mug and shot glasses and a t-shirt and a hat. I feel like he would have named him off. He would have named the dollar amount that he spent on it. I bet he fucking lied to Chris Hansen. He didn't send her anything.
The only reason is because Chris asked him directly. He wouldn't have volunteered that because it didn't happen.
He did lie. He did lie because Chris said, "Did you send this woman money?" And he said, "Oh, I sent her money. I sent her Dale Earnhardt things." And he never sent her any money.
Right.
That's really weird now that I think of it. Why is it be so specific with the lie?
Well, being so specific means that it could be true. Because think about the other lies that he told, and I'm just thinking about the one where he said that they called him off of work because someone else was going to do it because they had seniority, but it really turned out that he didn't go to work. He called out because he was hungover. But he was very specific with those. So, of course, the over-explaining.
Right, okay, I understand. Yeah. He's trying to make it sound more believable.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, think about this though too. With all of the catfish, he has attempted to send them things.
Also,
he's always wanted to do that.
Don't forget that the catfish is not going to hang about if they're not getting anything off him. The whole point of him getting catfished in this scenario, as we understand it, is that so that they can gain something from him. Financially, is probably likely. He was getting, Lorne is a perfect entity for getting manipulated. Well, I mean, I can't believe I'm even saying this. Of course, he's a perfect person to get scammed, catfish, fucking everything. They're not going to... What would be the purpose of them having this 2-year relationship with Lorne if they weren't getting anything out of it?
Yeah, and
who knows? Well, it doesn't have to be financial. It depends on what her motivation was. She could have just been somebody who was lonely, who was in the chat rooms, and she talked to a bunch of guys.
Yeah, of course.
I
but
agree
for
with
all that time, though, like talking to him for all that time, just sure. But if that's the case, why are they lying to him about the real name, about these daughters? What's this daughters and nieces thing? I've never been able to get my fucking head around.
It was just a part of the lie. There was probably a kid around.
A dirty lie, Andrew. That's what it is. That's the problem.
Haven't you ever seen the show Catfish on MTV? It's rarely about money. It's just about attention, about living a different life. Yeah, being a different person and getting attention for it. There was Vanessa Ann Lee Parker. He talked to her for a long time. He never said he sent her any money. There was no financial motive in it for her either. Some people are just weird.
Well, I think these catfish I think like my theory about Amanda James, she started out as being some kind of a scammer looking for money, and then eventually, she realized she couldn't get blood out of a rock, so
Yeah,
she goes.
I think it's very safe to say that she was just a woman in a chat room who talked to guys. I think that's just as easy, because if there is somebody who's strictly looking for money, they're not going to hang around. If they're not getting anything at all, if they can string somebody along and get, drips and drabs of things, along the way, sure, maybe.
Well, wait a minute.
It's going to depend on how desperate they are.
This is the man who claims he could afford a $250,000 wedding. This is a man who has decided he's going to buy his new child bride a red BMW. I mean, he could fill her with all kinds of bullshit.
No, but they're not, of course, but they're not going to just hang out.
What he really is, and they say, get your sister on the phone.
But that's not
not for 2 years.
No, I agree.
They don't need. There are plenty of men out there on the internet who are going to send money quickly and repeatedly. So she wouldn't have to play the long game with Lorne and talk to her for 2 years trying to get some money out of him. She would give up, though, if that was her main motive. Maybe she was hoping she could get something out of him eventually, but she could just disconnect with Lorne and move on to the next guy and get money much quicker.
The only time she did disconnect, as we understand it, is when she got found out by, and even, did you say that she was they were talking even after Lorne found that out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Until he eventually pulled the plug.
Well, you can't just fall out of love right away. Come on.
She probably
changed her email. She probably changed, right. She either blocked him, she deleted her account. Somehow he had no way of
getting it. Funny if Lorne got dumped by a catfish. I'm
he
sick
killed
of this
Amanda
guy.
James.
Definitely.
Amanda James was no longer after Lorne.
Well, because he said that he hacked into her email.
That's bullshit.
That's the other thing.
He can't even hack into his own emails.
I know. He guessed her email password. It was Bono U2, and he found her emails with her talking to another man and like naked pictures of another man or something.
When did he say that?
And I don't know.
Where have you been?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
sorry.
It's like something that's been known forever. Yeah, that's Ramona era.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh wow. I'm really out of the loop, Anna. It's a good job you guys are in.
Yeah, you need
just
to catch
me rambling.
Up. Speaking of catching up, you should listen to the call where he reads the chat log with Winnie, because I doubt you've heard it.
I've
and
not
it is
heard that. I
have
heard
different.
The one with one of our crew here. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Although,
this one's equally interesting, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep going over it, but I really struggle with the Winnie stuff. I can only do like 5-minute stints at the most, and then it's like enough for a day or so. I can't. It's really difficult for me to get through, but I'll try.
Well, it's worth listening to, because his demeanor is very, very different. When he's reading it with Tiffany, he's all mopey and crying and, oh, Jesus Christ, I can't believe I said that. When he reads it with Winnie, Winnie is giggling and laughing, and she's treating it like a fun thing. Like, oh, this is fun. Let's read this.
Tactic,
it's so funny. Very. I agree. And his attitude absolutely reflects that. He's giggling and laughing along with it. He's cracking up. Because at one point, Winnie expresses jealousy when he's love bombing Kayla, and he is so flattered by that, and he's enjoying himself when he's reading it with Winnie.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What a great that's some pretty good manipulating stuff right there. That's good.
Yeah.
Andrew, have you heard one of the most recent ones?
Probably.
When he brought that woman over to look at his metal shed. You probably haven't heard that one.
I haven't heard that one. No, I have been told about it. So yes, we will talk about that another time once I've heard it. I don't want any spoilers. But Adam filled me in. Yeah, I think he rung me specifically to tell me about it as well, which was quite funny.
You mentioned that woman coming out of the property and Lawrence holding the door open to the container.
No spoilers, dude.
Sorry.
You can't help yourself.
I
Which is funny. So, yeah, the Amanda James thing. It's funny that Lorne brought that up as a kind of excuse. Obviously, I think we've talked about that before. But it is kind of... it interests me in that we didn't know we'd been catfished before. And we were kind of wondering, did it have any bearing on his relationship with Kayla, if you can call it a relationship? You know, because he's saying he got taken advantage of and all this kind of stuff. But that's Lorne's whole sort of MO, isn't it? Everybody takes advantage of him. Women, family members.
Oh, yeah.
I could come up with one example where you may have learned something from Molly when it comes to Kayla. I think the ex-boyfriend is the big one. I think he had to tolerate Molly's ex-boyfriend because she was already kind of in a relationship with him or whatever, so he had to pretend he was the old wise one, you know, but until she broke free of him, and then but I think he wanted to shut that off when it came to Kayla. And when he figured out that Kayla was unattached, let's say, and that there was an ex in the background, he wanted to make sure that never happened again. I don't think that happened with Molly so much. I think
I think that's a really good point. That I like that. That's kind of does add a bit more.
I think he wanted to make sure that there was no interference by any exes.
Well, he doesn't want that ever, does he? At all. But of course, I know what you mean, though. He was this is just, I think, maybe Shin. That's why he was even more paranoid, because obviously Derek is a a lot of people's favorite character, and it's this
wonderful man. It's great,
isn't it? But maybe that's part of why he was getting so freaked out about this little 13-year-old with a backpack and an NSYNC sticker on it. It's like,
right.
It's so amusing, and you're trying to understand it, and that would explain it a little bit, because I'm almost trying to give Lorne a pass here. Actually, I'll have to reword that. Not a pass. That's wrong. Hear me out. I don't want to believe it's insulting to me as a human male that any human male would get jealous of a 13-year-old boy. It's almost an insult to our species. I actually don't want to believe it was that simple.
Yeah,
believe it.
Yeah, believe it. It is that simple. Lorne was jealous of Derek. Definitely.
I also think Lorne was jealous of his nephew with Paula. And that's why he brought up that Paula was jealous of his nieces. And it was weird. She gave way more attention to his nephew. I think he wanted to make her jealous of his nieces.
Oh, that's his
jealousy means love. To Lorne, if you love someone, then you're going to be incredibly jealous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and again, he doesn't take the issues on head on. If he's going to be jealous of the way she's treating his nephew, rather than talking to her about that, he's going to turn it around and do tit for tat and try to make her jealous about the way he treats his nieces. That's the way he is. If I'm going to be jealous of her, I'm going to make sure she's jealous of me, or whatever. The other way around.
He wants someone to be jealous of attention. He desperately wants someone to feel that way about him. It's like in one of the recent throuple calls, he is trying to get Jamie to admit that she was mad at Lorne for choosing Casey over her. Mm-hmm. And of course the robot refuses to admit that. But he makes that story up in his own mind. That's what he wants. He wants someone to feel that way about him, because that means you love them.
Yeah. Tulip and Carnation just couldn't play the game.
And consider what you had said before too, AJ, about Winnie being jealous about the attention that Lorne was giving to Kayla. And they're reading his crime.
No.
And he's giggling and going along with it. Because he's reading it with Winnie.
Mm-hmm.
So he loved that about Winnie.
He did, yes. It really put it into perspective when we listened to him read the chat log with Debbie. He's just mirroring. He's just acting the way he thinks Debbie wanted him to act in that moment. None of it was genuine. When he read it with Winnie, it was all fun and giggles, like they're reading a little story together. They're doing a little role play. It's so silly and fun.
Yeah, but Debbie wasn't judgmental or anything when she was listening to it. She was therapeutic. She was trying to get him to see things and just read it and feel comfortable that I'm not, but at the same time, you're right. He wanted to get into your pants too. So he wanted to somehow spin this in a way that made him look as in anguish as he should feel, rather than he actually did.
And it was being recorded.
It was being recorded for the community so that they could hear it.
I think he only cared about you.
No, I don't think so. I think he really cared about what was being put on the internet as well, because he was constantly asking Emma, how many comments, how many views is it getting, and all of that. That's where all the celebrities started jumping in. And he kept believing it. He kept believing it. So they just kept coming. It was really funny. Yeah.
The channel that was uploaded to was called Lorne's Redemption.
Yeah.
So that's what he thought was happening.
He did.
Brilliant.
And Probation knew about it as well.
Oh yeah.
So did Shania Twain.
And absolutely, Leah Remini, I think maybe was one of the first who knew about it.
Uh-huh.
I like
just the most random celebrities. Sinbad.
I know. And you know what's funny is I thought it had to be someone who kind of wasn't, an A-lister like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. I thought with Sylvester Stallone, he was going to be like, no. But he went right for it. It was amazing.
The job that
no one was off the limit.
Sly off.
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sylvester Stallone had to come to Maine to meet Lorne's probation officer and his mother, I believe, was part of the role, because Sylvester Stallone wanted him to do the elderly aerobics video.
If somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, you'd be perfect for chair aerobics," I wouldn't know how to take that. I could stand, that. Lorne doesn't even second guess it.
No, he said probation was skeptical. So in order to make it work, Sylvester Stallone would have to fly to Maine to meet probation and Lorne's mom. If they really want to work with him.
He believed it too. I mean, wholeheartedly, because I remember him mentioning that he was really upset that his lawyer wouldn't show him all of the letters from the celebrities.
Yeah, because he went to jail shortly after. And there were the jail phone calls where he was saying that he was threatening to take it high profile, and he had all this celebrity support online, and he needed those celebrities to write letters to the judge as well. The celebrities and the little people too. Everyone needed to write letters.
Everybody.
I could imagine him in jail bragging to the other inmates about how this whole thing was going to blow up. Yep, Sylvester Stallone is writing a letter to the judge. He's probably going to come to Maine for his court date.
I warned them.
Shania Twain is writing a song about his plight.
Mitch McConnell was also behind Lorne.
So
many people.
Do you know what's funny about that is it makes his belief that Casey Moreau was more romantically interested in him less crazy. It almost it's like I don't know which.
It makes
is
it
worse.
possible.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
makes it possible that he really believes that. Yeah. And I wonder when he got
to those beliefs. I'm sorry. I think he's held on to some of those beliefs that he knows it was all fake now. He knows that Emma and Winnie are the same person. But I feel like he's kind of held. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I feel like
He keeps
knows
referring
it, but
to
at the
them as
same time,
I've
He gets
noticed
sick
in
of Ramona.
calls. He keeps referring to them as separate people.
I think that's because the calls are released out of order. So
Ah.
the calls where he says that they're the same person, it's before he has learned that they are not the same person. I do think he gets it kind of confused in his head because he talks about him and Casey like being celebrities essentially, and the paparazzi is going to chase them around, and they could do a reality show together and people would watch it. They're not just normal people. So I think he kind of has that stuck in his head that celebrities are aware of him and he's a much more prominent figure than he actually is.
He's definitely special.
I also think he thinks that our group of weird people on the internet who are interested in him is much, much larger than it really is.
Sure.
Yeah, well, he doesn't understand anything to do with YouTube at all. It's like trying to explain it to a fucking, to a donkey. He just has no clue at all, does he? Like you say, the amount of people, the scope of it, how people. He just doesn't get any of it. The fact that he kind of mentioned his cooking show in court just kind of highlights that in case you needed any, but that's what makes it all funny is, his lack of understanding of the internet is integral to the whole Lorne saga and, how he got caught up there and his crazy innuendos of trying to not get caught and delete you this, that and the other and how none of it made any sense. It's very, very funny part of his old tale, really. But just quickly...
Read what Mr. said to you. Did you know this?
What's that?
Read what
the throuple were going to move into a mansion in LA and pay for it with a reality show.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Is that true?
Oh my
I don't know who said that.
Mr. C.
Oh, I don't know if that was said, but I guarantee Lorne would go with that. But it sounds like
I know there were plans for them to live in LA, I think, at one point, or they talked about that. The way the story went was with Casey, she told Lorne that she refused to move out of her house because it was very special to her. She owned it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a character introduced early on, Casey's ex, whose name was also Casey.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if any of this was mentioned, but there it is. Yeah, there was her ex named Casey. He died, and they had bought their house together. So she did not want to leave that house. It was very special to her. And Lorne kept telling her, well, you're going to have to find a new house. We can't live in your house because the paparazzi will find us. These people will find us and take pictures of us. So you need to start looking at different houses in LA. And she was like, why? They're always going to know where you live. You're on the sex offender registry. Why do I have to move? And he mentioned something about like, well, get a house with a fence or something. I don't know. But yeah, there was, he, from what I remember, he was going to fund his trip to LA or like his moving to LA by selling his property. And they were like, how much do you think that's going to buy you in LA? He has obviously no understanding of real estate or the cost of living in some place like that. He thought they were going to be able to buy a house in LA with the money that he made from selling the trailer. I don't remember a reality show, but it's possible.
Mr. C said it was in the last call with Sunday with God. So I'll have to listen to that.
I mean, that makes sense. That's right up Lorne's alley of thinking.
Totally.
I remember he did mention that to Casey, that people would watch a reality show with the two of them, which is just hilarious. Could you imagine like the opening reel of that show? I was a young actress and I was a pedophile.
I was a porn star.
We fell in love at first sight. Now we're trying to make it work. What the fuck? Who's going to watch a pedophile on a reality show? I mean, unless they're getting arrested, like on To Catch a Predator.
That's true. And all of us would watch it too.
I would absolutely. I'd quit my job.
You know the ironic, she said you would watch that. Everybody would watch that. You've just come up with a really interesting premise there. I'd be all over it.
I know, but normal people, I mean. Like normal
the
people.
rest of the public.
We're weird.
Exactly.
Sorry, I forgot. I thought everybody was like us a lot on YouTube.
Lorne thinks that I think Lorne gets his inspiration from Three's Company.
Normal people. That's fucking funny.
Yeah, normal people, not us.
That is a good point, Shen. He watched Three's Company constantly, especially during the Throuple era. And I think it was the last Throuple call that was put up. Jamie proposed to Casey. And Lorne, have you heard this, Andrew?
No.
Oh, it's really funny.
Okay. I spoiled it. Oh, whoops. But okay, yes. Jamie proposed to Casey and Lorne starts gasping for air and like stuttering. He can't even speak. And then he starts crying because he wanted to propose to them first. I don't know if he understands you can't marry two people. So he can't propose to two women and marry them. That's against the law. But he starts crying about it, and Three's Company is loudly playing in the background. It's very funny.
I always have my this mental image of Lorne, this little short guy, walking down the street with two beautiful women on his arm. It just doesn't seem natural at all. It's just so weird.
It does in his mind.
Oh my God.
That's the funny thing.
I've thought about that too, about how insecure and disgusting he should feel standing next to, especially a woman like Jamie.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you feel really, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but
feel ugly, exactly. You know,
yeah.
Not him.
And also very short too.
Yeah. I love that Photoshop that I think was Reborn did, where him and Jamie are together. He made sure that she was a good 8 inches taller than him.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
With his glasses and hat on.
They're both doing the kissy face. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Trash in the background.
Mm-hmm.
All Lord's junk hoard.
If I saw that in real life, you know, the woman's one of the most beautiful women you could ever see, right? And him in public, I couldn't help but stare. I don't think I could stop staring at that situation. What the fuck is going on with that? Must be her brother.
Well, also, yeah, exactly. Who's that? But also, just to think of those pictures that were taken with his new clothes.
Yeah.
With his ties and his shirt. Imagine him walking around with Jamie with a short sleeve button down yellow shirt and a tie.
I would think that she is a hooker and he was using his life savings to pay for a single date with her.
Right. So you would feel probably sorry,
rich.
like, oh, taking advantage of this poor man.
Andrew, take a look at Mike Scott's picture. That's the one I'm talking about.
I could see it.
First of all, Mike Scott, thank you for changing your picture to something that's not Lorne's asshole.
Oh,
yeah, he did that, didn't he?
I missed that.
A little bit more tasteful this time.
It's much more tasteful, yes. Thank you.
This one's wonderful, though. Look at that.
Yeah, look at them.
Imagine he comes into probation with a girl like that.
Oh, God, that reminds me. When probation went to his trailer, there were posters of this woman, on humongous posters of her on his wall. And Lorne said, yeah, that's my girlfriend.
Is that the
and they're
real
like,
Jamie
and they're like,
Amy
bullshit.
that Mike has got on his picture?
Yeah.
Because I've just blown it up on my phone now. So that's not just some random beautiful woman. That's Jamie Amy.
That's Jamie.
Well, it is a random beautiful woman.
It is.
Yeah,
it's
no,
Look at that. And I think in the background on the real picture, the trailer failure's there too. So it kind of
adds.
It is. Yes.
It is. It's all the trash out in all
his backyard,
the big junk
right?
Piles. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
I think that
but yeah, when
photograph
probation saw those
demonstrates is
posters,
insane.
I know. Well, yeah,
know.
in the posters of it, and him insisting that that's his girlfriend, and they're like, "Are you sure, Lorne?" And he's like, "What? You don't think she's the first beautiful woman I've dated, do you?"
I have heard that. Yeah.
I will take you up on that. Yes.
And he told that to Casey, and Casey, he told Casey, I've dated more beautiful women than Jamie before. And Casey's like, "Yeah, who?" And he said Paula was hotter than Jamie.
What?
And then, yes, Lorne said that Paula was more beautiful. Paula the slut was more beautiful than Jamie.
Oh dear, oh dear. The world according to Lorne. Can you imagine if we slipped into an alternative reality where it's Lorne's universe, where everything is how we imagined it? What a crazy world that would be. We should write a book.
It would destroy itself.
It would, yeah. I mean, we could talk about the complete inadequacies of that universe. Well, the economy would collapse straight away. No one would procreate. So there'd be population collapse, economic collapse. I mean, there's a whole host of problems. But just buy into it for a second. Let's just say all those problems took care of themselves. It would be a crazy world where he was on. Oh man, yeah. It's just I was just gonna go off on one then about what the TV channels would be like and how he could just do his cooking show and he'd get millions of viewers and every channel on cable would be like Lorne's fitness channel, Lorne's cooking channel, like music channel, a dating channel, XXX Lorne.
Oh man.
Oh, I just remembered one of Lorne's plans to make money. For him to move to LA, because Casey kept asking, "How are you going to afford that one? Do you have any idea what houses in LA cost?" And oh, by the way, he wanted her to find like a home in a rural part of LA. He wanted to be away from the paparazzi. But one of his
up in the hills.
One of his, I guess that's going to be real affordable.
Mm.
One of his suggestions was he was going to write a script for a TV show, and Casey would be the actress for the show, and that was going to make them a whole lot of money. And I think he wrote like 2 pages of it, and he wrote it in the format of a book, like a chapter book. There were he literally divided it into chapters, if I remember correctly, and it was not formatted for television at all. A lot of it was like the dialogue that was inside the character's mind. So if you're going to act that scene out,
Right.
It would be just her sitting in the car saying nothing, thinking to herself, but we can't see inside her mind or her thoughts. Yeah, I don't think he understands.
Do we have
the difference? Blue Boy has it.
Oh, Blue Boy, if you're here.
Yeah, it's incomplete, believe it or not. He never finished it.
That's a shame. We've still got, speaking of incomplete creations of Lorne, we've still got the end of The Creature to do, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit.
Well, they're stuck on the...
I shouldn't have brought it up.
They got to somehow get away from Base Camp 1. So stupid.
Yeah, that
so anyway,
stupid.
Just to wrap up the Amanda James story, so we know how it ends, right? With him, with the sister. The sister story fascinated me as well because it's one of those vague stories that Lorne doesn't provide any details of, no matter how much you ask him about it. So the way that he explains it is that she gets on the phone and then hands him back the phone a short time later and says she's been lying to you, and then walks away, and he never asks her any questions. They never talk about it.
And
that's
double
just the
down
end of it.
and for 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always thought that was really weird.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's desperate. I mean, there's no question about that.
Doesn't make any sense, does it? He's gonna want to know all the information, isn't it? Why is she fake? I need to know. I'm desperate. I love this girl. We were gonna get married. She's seen pictures of my literal, all that kind of stuff. He's not just gonna go, oh, okay, no problem. Let's not talk about it again. Next.
He'd be more interested to know who was behind it, whether it was a female. I think that's what his goal would be. As long as she's a female, whether she's lying to me or not, at least you'd stick with it in that situation. But because I think
Lorne doesn't care.
I always think when you're talking to him, Debbie, I'm always thinking that even if he thinks you're a catfish, it doesn't matter to him because he's really talking to a female, and he thinks that there's a way into your heart somehow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's why
he came close.
That's why he called Ramona back.
Right.
After she said that everything was fake the entire time, down to her name. And he was asking if she wanted to see his pee-pee by the end of the call.
Right. That's why I think if one of the catfish had called him again, who he had thought was a woman behind it rather than, Reborn or Blue Boy or anything like that, I think he would talk to him.
Yeah, he found out Winnie was fake. She wasn't really Casey Morrow, but it was okay because she was a woman. And she loved him.
Yeah.
He would definitely take your call, Tiffany. No question. I can.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, let's get this.
No.
So
absolutely not.
My theory is that he's more likely to get violated by probation now. I think probation has always been weary about him coming back, arguing about what's going on in the online community and how probation doesn't help him with that. I think they kind of want to avoid that, but now he's got no catfish and there's no new content out there. So I think if all these things he's able to slide on now, I think he's going to be a little more difficult for him now because he doesn't have that. I mean, if you're going to try to find a silver lining about not having more recent calls, that probably could be it.
Well, we just don't have him yet.
Yeah. Like if Wine Lover called or somebody called, a woman called and said she was a wine lover, he would talk to her.
Of course. It doesn't take a lot of backstory to explain why it was the way it was before. And all it takes is, oh, yeah, my phone was hacked or I was on drugs.
I was blackmailed.
I was blackmailed. I mean, that story has happened so many times. I was mad at you.
Like a charm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then...
That's why the universe, according to Lorne Armstrong, would be so interesting. Everybody gets blackmailed. Nothing's straightforward. There's lies. Everybody gets fucked over by the siblings. It's like, what a crazy world.
Mm-hmm. And Xavier's pulling all of the strings. Yeah, exactly.
We all expose ourselves at all times.
Every time you bought a copy of the newspaper over here, tabloids are world renowned. Every time you bought a couple of the Sunday Times, there's a picture of Xavier on the front. Xavier in Russian collusion or something.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he's a master hacker. That's how all the calls got released. Xavier was recording everything somehow. He also hacked Lorne's laptop. So now the screen is just white. He can't even get past the white screen because Xavier fucked up. It's not because he's a moron. And he clicked every shady link in the world. He Googled how to make money quickly.
Wait a minute. Did he say
some virus or something?
Can you imagine I wonder why nobody else has thought of why to put into Google how to make money quickly.
And why that wouldn't bring
That's
up
how he got
pages of scams.
Yeah, that's how he got scammed. Because he was Googling like make money online quick or something very fucking stupid like that. And he ended up getting all these scams. He got like a text randomly, a text or an email that told him that if he got his truck like wrapped with Mountain Dew advertisements, they would pay him $600. And he's
just
like,
a
yeah,
flat
that
fee
sounds legit.
for $600. That's it?
Yeah, he was fucking stoked about that.
Oh my God.
He believed it. He also got one of those, like, I think I've mentioned this before. He was emailing back and forth with one of those like chatbot things that the girls, you get a random email that's like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I met you at that place that one time, and I've been thinking about you. Do you want to chat? And then he starts talking to them because he's a moron. And they send like little clips of videos of like, cam girls or something in very provocative clothing. And it's all to get to the end of, to get money out of him, to get him to go to a campsite or something. He's obviously not talking to a real woman, and he's not talking to that woman, certainly. But he thought he was. And he kind of tried to like make the girls jealous with that, or make Casey. I can't remember if the robot was involved yet at that point or not.
Did he ever send them pictures of these? Did he ever send pictures of who he was talking to?
No, I don't think he ever did, unfortunately.
Okay. That'd be funny.
Yeah, that would have been great. I don't know if they even told him, Lorne, that was a scam. That's not real.
Mm-hmm.
I think they gave up. At some point they can't keep hovering over this guy, because he makes a mistake every second. And he's just
every time he breathes, he makes a mistake.
What's that?
I said every time he breathes, he makes a mistake.
Probably he's incapable of learning anything other than how to groom better. That's it.
Well,
they knew.
Speaking of which, so we've got right up to Kayla, which we're going to do next time we're on. Now, there are lots of little stories which would make us go on forever, so we're going to have to draw the line. We might have a bonus round where we talk about all the little flings that he's had, Mikey's mum, Brandy, all these people. Huh?
Toe penetration.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all these characters. I mean, we might. I don't know. We could do that next week, but maybe next time we're all available anyway. But maybe not. But so it'd be like Kayla would be the next one, and then after that, obviously, there's Ramona. Then after Ramona, I believe, was Winnie. Then you've got.
Debbie.
I don't think Debbie
or Casey.
Oh yeah,
Debbie.
Casey number 1. Then Debbie. Then who we got after that?
What about Rhoda?
Jamie.
Oh, Rhoda was.
Rhoda, yes, Rhoda's definitely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even more than I realized. So we got a lot.
Yeah, Rhoda was during Winnie.
Right.
Yeah.
And so were you.
That's right.
He never cheats. He's a one catfish man.
One catfish.
I made a comment recently on a video that was it was involving Rhoda. I think it was a call where Lorne was talking to Dan, saying that he was having a hard time choosing between Rhoda and Debbie. And I made a comment. Right. I made a comment under that video, and I was like, anybody who ever feels any like moral dilemma about the catfish, and listen to this call. This shitbag tried to date his girlfriend's newly 18-year-old daughter, blah blah blah. And somebody replied to me in the comments, and they basically said like, yeah, but Winnie was mean to Lorne. So look at it from both sides. And I'm like, I still don't think it's appropriate to try to fuck your girlfriend's daughter. Yeah.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
We can talk about that. That's why it'd be interesting to talk. I mean,
that's not the same thing.
The Rhoda thing would probably get its own stream. I think it's that interesting. And we can even discuss the Rhoda's funeral bit, because that's hilarious, and the brownie thing, because that's one of
Marvin,
my favorite.
She's naked.
Yeah, it's just so. I think I mention it very often, but it's just a remarkable piece of entertainment, if you will. It's just truly fascinating. Like, I love you, Rhoda.
I'm gonna insist that you listen to the call about the metal shed with the woman he tried to get to move in.
I would love to. I would fucking love to.
It's very revealing.
Yeah, we've even got Michelle Simpson as well, but I don't know whether that'd devote a whole stream. That was sandwiched in between the Ramona. But the Ramona
No, that
one,
was during Ramona.
Yeah, it was during Ramona. That's what I mean. But like the Ramona one, it's going to take up there's a lot there that went on, you know, and it was very. Anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to it. I'm gonna have to wrap it up now. So, yeah, thanks for everybody joining us in the chat. I hope you have enjoyed it. And thank you to Amanda, James, Tiffany, and Shin for joining us. We don't our paths. We have to. It's sometimes difficult to get us all free at the same time. So I don't know when the next stream is going to be, but it will be. We'll be discussing the dynamics of the Kayla relationship because obviously that's not been done before, has it? But we'll approach it. But I don't think all of us have talked about it as a whole because it brings up whether we can sort of cover any new ground. I don't know, but obviously we've got a lot of new information to put into it, you know, like all of the stuff we've got from the catfishing, because the Blue Boy calls gave us a wealth of information, so that might help us to look at it from a different light, so you never know. But anyway,
paying $2,500 for a fantastic psychological evaluation,
well,
that's wonderful.
Exactly. He paid for it. Well, the taxpayer paid for it by the sounds of it.
No, he did. He borrowed money to pay for that himself.
Yeah, but he doesn't pay his debts, does he? That's the point I'm making.
No, he had to actually pay that up front.
Right.
Yeah, we'll get the story on that. Yeah,
just for the community's amusement, which is fucking brilliant.
No, that's how it works. I mean, if I'm gonna hire an expert as an attorney, if I'm gonna hire an expert, you got to pay for this up front. It's not. I'm not gonna bill you for it. I'm never gonna see that money. But no, I mean, I believe there was some correspondences too, with his lawyer telling him how much it's gonna cost. Some text message, something, and he had to come up with it. And that's one of the ways he got scammed in order to get that money. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it is beautiful. Right.
And there's correspondence with him and his lawyer, with his lawyer telling him, literally asking him if he's insane for talking to Casey Morrow, and telling him he really needs to put an end to that, especially because Lorne was trying to get out of class at that time. That's what he hired the lawyer to help him get out of sex offender class. And one of the biggest reasons, or not the biggest, but one of the reasons he is still in the class is because he kept engaging with people that he hasn't met in real life, and he can't verify their age.
Oh, we can get into that. That's a whole,
hilarious.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. I'm gonna have to leave it there. So, guys, thank you very much. I'll let you know when the next one is. It hopefully won't be too